Welcome to Distance Learning at Kabbalah U, that's YOU, where our motto is, the best things in life are kept secret. My name is Zalman Velvel, and I'm here to introduce the Dean of Kabbalistic Studies, Rebbe Shmoyle, of the mystical Mashkovitz sect. Hello, Rebbe Shmoyle.
Big sind, Zalman.
Rebbe, you have a very unusual family name. What is its origin?
Well, Shmoyle is an acronym. It's a combination of short and moyle.
Are you saying that all the men in your family were short?
They were short in height, but not in length.
For the benefit of those not familiar with the word, what exactly does a moyle do?
Well, a moyle performs circumcisions.
And how did your family get involved in that?
Well, it's a long story, but since I'm a moyle, I can cut it short for you. The first Shmoyle, Shmendrik, was walking along one day, and he came across Abraham, the first man ever to be circumcised.
Who was doing the circumcision?
He was doing it to himself.
Doing it to himself? Is there a name for that?
Of course. It's called mastercision. But he was using a rock.
A rock?
A rock.
A rock?
No, a rock.
A rock?
Correct. And Shmendrik said to Abraham, "What are you doing there with a rock? Oy vey, and such a dull rock. What are you, more sugar? You keep this up, you won't have to put the toilet seat up."
And then what happened?
Shmendrik looked around for a Boy Scout.
Why?
Because he needed a knife, and he found one.
A knife?
No, a Boy Scout.
What was his name?
Cleaver, which was perfect. He was the great-great-grandfather of the beaver.
And then what did Shmendrik do?
He took the knife, and he finished the job. You know, I just thought of something. How come everything done down there always ends in job?
But Rebbe, I don't think that story is in the Bible.
It's not. It's a secret. That's Kabbalah.
Is there more?
Yes, of course. Poor Abraham, he was in such pain. He said, do something. So Shmendrik gave him oil.
Where did he get the oil from?
Saudi Arabia, like everyone else. Abraham rubbed the oil on it, and a genie popped out.
Of what?
I can't say. I'm rated PG.
Well, what was her name?
It wasn't a her. It was a him.
Then what was his name?
I can't tell you, but it rhymes with shtick. You got to think about that one for a minute.
Did the genie give Abraham 3 wishes?
No, but he gave him 3 rashes.
Rebbe, you have to explain something to me. Why did Abraham circumcise himself in the first place?
Because God told him he was going to give him a son. A son. Then Abraham looked down at what he had done and said, God, after this, I deserve twins.
Exactly how old was Abraham at the time?
Well, he was going to be 99, and his wife Sarah was going to be 90.
Well, why did they wait so long to have a child?
Because they wanted to be dead by the time it was a teenager.
Now, what did Sarah think about having a baby at 90?
She thought, good, I can have them both in Pampers at the same time.
And what size pamper would fit Abraham?
Depends.
So, is there a deep Kabbalistic meaning to circumcision?
Of course, but it's not as deep as it was before circumcision.
But what is the meaning, Rebbe?
Tikkun Olam. God wanted man to improve the world. And he had to start somewhere, so he started with the shmekel.
With the shmekel? Why did God start with the shmekel?
Because he wanted man to have skin in the game. Not a lot, just a tiny piece.
You know, that's very profound.
Especially for Abraham. It was his skin.
Now, is that the only thing we remember about Abraham?
No, he was very special. Abraham was the first man to worship only one God. Before that, there were gods everywhere. The sun god, the moon god, the Zilla god.
You mean Godzilla?
Correct, but in Hebrew, you read from right to left. You know, Zalman, women immediately accepted the concept of one God.
And why was that?
Because in the middle of the night, they no longer had to yell out, "Oh, gods!"
So, Rebbe, when did the Shmoyles become Kabbalists?
When they couldn't get work as pianists. And besides, it's easier to carry around a Kabbalah than a piano.
So who brought the Kabbalah to the Shmoyles?
It was the great-granddaughter of Shmendrik. Her name was Shana.
Now, how did Shana discover Kabbalah?
Well, Shana was a shaman, a holy woman, wandering around in a cave.
What was she doing in a cave?
She was spelunking.
What is spelunking?
I'm not sure, but I think it's the second oldest profession in the world. And she was in big trouble.
Why?
She was impaled on a stalactite.
Where?
I can't tell you. It's a private place. Oh, you mean where was the stalactite? In a very special cave.
Now, why was the cave so special, Rebbe?
Because the great Kabbalist, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, was hiding there with his son Shmoyle.
Hiding?
Yes, from the Roman soldiers.
Now, why was he hiding from the soldiers?
Because he didn't want to wear that little pleated skirt. He didn't think it went well with the helmet and shield.
So, Rebbe, we have Shana the shaman in the cave with Shimon and Shimon's son, Shmuel. Now what happened?
Well, first they all got tongue-tied, just like you. Then Shimon spent all his time working on the ancient secret book of Kabbalah, the Zohar.
What's that about?
I can't tell you, it's a secret. But he worked on it for 40 years.
Why so long?
Because it took 13 years just to figure out how to spell Kabbalah.
And then what?
They were so exhausted that they went outside the cave to get fresh air. And Shana said, we only got the title. We got to get back in and finish this book. It's going to be a bestseller, and some shiksa named Madonna is going to make it famous.
Now, how did she know that?
Shema was sure because she was a shaman. Shana married Shimon's son Shmoyle, and Shmuel took her name Shmoyle because Shana was such a sharp shaman. That was the beginning of the Shmoyle Kabbalistic dynasty, starting with Shmoyle, grandson of Shimon and the son of Shana. They also had a son named Peter who picked a peck of pipple peppers, but you already know how that goes.
So, Rebbe, now that we have your background, the purpose of distance learning at Kabbalah U is to answer students' questions. Would you mind a few questions?
What are you talking about, Zalman? How else are you going to learn? I love questions, especially when they're from the IRS.
And then what do?
I give them to Morty Lipschitz.
Who's Morty Lipschitz?
He's a great Kabbalist. And what's more, he's my accountant. You think I got secrets?
Well, now that we understand that, I have an email here sent in by Cassie Cantrell from Kansas City, Kansas. She asks, Rebbe Shmoyle, what exactly is Kabbalah about?
Well, Salman, Kabbalah is what God was thinking when he made the world. You know, sometimes I wonder what God was thinking when he made P.V. Hyman.
What was he thinking?
I can assure you he was not thinking about the theater in Sarasota.
Well, that answers that question. I have here a text sent in by Nathan Nussbaum from Northport, New Hampshire. He wrote, Rebbe, my son asked me, if God made everything, who made God? What should I say to him?
Just tell him Santa Claus.
But Rebbe, what if he doesn't believe in Santa Claus?
Tell him he's going to hell. No, look. Tell him, and this is very mystical, God made himself.
God made himself?
Yes. Don't think about it too much. It'll drive you crazy, just like Kabbalah.
You mean Kabbalah can drive you crazy?
Sure, what do you think? There was a Shmoyle that got so whacked out on Kabbalah, his soul actually left his body.
And what happened to him?
He became a lawyer.
What was his name?
Stupa Shmoyle. He started the firm of Weiner, Diner, and Stupa. He had to give up being a moil because it was taking 40% off the top, not just a tiny piece.
And where are they located?
In prison.
Well, Rebbe, that's all the questions for tonight's Internet Kabbalah class. Where are you going next?
To a very mystical place.
And where is that?
The toilet.
The toilet. Why is that mystical?
Because when I leave, there'll be a big mist in there.
I was referring to your book tour.
Oh, the book tour, yes. I'll be at the Barnes & Noble in Newark at the airport.
Why the airport?
Because it's the only bookstore in Jersey.
And what book are you promoting?
Oh, Zalman, it's a very intense book. I discuss the deep hidden significance of numerology and how it interfaces with the mystical juxtapositions of astrology and Einstein's theory of special relativity.
That sounds very complicated. What's the title?
Kabbalah for Dummies.
But Rebbe, you spelled dummies wrong.
Of course. How else will the dummies know it's for them?
Well, students, that's the end of this week's Kabbalah class. Email your questions to KabbalahMe@KabbalahU.com.